Okay, my friends, this is going to be a really fun book. It is a nonfiction, not fake book. It is some true facts about insects this week. It is called Insect Detective. The author, the person who wrote the words, is Steve Vogt. And then it is illustrated by Charlotte Vogt. So they are a husband and wife that wrote this book. And it's really neat. They didn't actually use real pictures. If you want to take a look, they did like water paintings or watercolor pictures in the book, which was really neat. We're going to work on 2 skills today. Schema. Remember, schema is everything you already know. It's in your head. And we're going to add new information today. And we're going to work on inferring, using clues in the story to help understand what we're talking about. So before I start reading, we are going to quickly review schema. Remember, our schema is what we already know. We carry it around in our head, kind of like a file. Whenever we read, we would open up that file in our head and think about what do we already know. Then we can look out for new information, and that might make us stop and say, hey, I didn't know that. And then you can add that to your schema. So before we read today, I want you to open up that schema, open up that file in your head and think, what do I already know about insects? What do I know about insects? So I want you to just kind of think to yourself, tell someone around you, what do you know about insects? You can put me on pause if you need to, and then we're going to start reading the story. Okay, I hope you did schema. I'm going to try my best. This story, the words and pictures are kind of light, so I'll do my very best reading it and showing you the pictures. So Insect Detective. There's our title page. Right now, all around you, thousands of insects are doing strange and wonderful things, but you can't always see them right away. Sometimes you have to know where to look. There are more insects living in the world than all the other animals put together, about 200 million insects for every single person. That is a lot. Listen, over by the fence, can you hear a scratching sound? A wasp is scraping away at the post with her strong jaws. She's collecting wood. She mixes it into a soft pulp in her mouth. When she has enough, she'll help the other wasps build a nest out of paper. Wasps often collect different kinds of wood, which makes their nest look stripy, just like the insects who made them. Not all kinds of wasps live together, but many of them do. Insects that live together are called social insects. Have you ever seen a wasp nest at your house? Ants always live together. They usually make their nests underground. Finding an ant's nest is easy. First, find an ant, then follow it. It might stop to chat with some other ants along the way. Ants can communicate by touching their antennae together. But after a while, the ant will head home, and you'll be able to find out where it lives. Let's look down here at the corner. It says, like all insects, ants have 3 main body parts. They have a head, you have a head, thorax, and abdomen. Where's your abdomen? Solitary bees live by themselves. Solitary means alone. This female solitary bee is busy collecting food from spring flowers. She'll store it in her tiny nest so that they will be ready for her when eggs hatch. All insects start life as eggs. Solitary bees make their nests in holes in the ground, cracks in walls, or in tiny cavities that have been left by other insects. Many animals like to eat insects for dinner, so some insects use camouflage to blend in with surroundings, and that's a word we already know. Look at this crinkly brown leaf. Can you see a crinkly brown herald moth too? Do you see a moth in there? They often rest in trees during the day so the birds won't see them. Insects have other ways of hiding too. See the squiggly lines on the leaves? They were made by a leaf miner caterpillar. The leaf miner protects itself by living between the top and bottom layers of leaves, a bit like hiding in a sandwich. Can you see the holes in the leaves? This picture. Lift up a stone and you might see an earwig scuttle out. They like to hide in the damp and the dark. The pincers on the tips of their abdomens make them look kind of scary, but don't worry, they're completely harmless. Do you see it? Female earwigs are very good mothers. They work hard to keep their eggs clean, turning and washing them regularly. When the young hatch, their mothers bring them food until they're old enough to look after themselves. Of course, you might find some creatures under there that aren't insects. These are not insects. Spiders, woodlice, centipedes, or slugs. And once I even found a baby frog. It's easy to tell whether something is an insect or not. All you have to do is count the legs. This is really important. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. If it has 6 legs, it's an insect. If it doesn't, it isn't. So if you count the legs and you find 6, it's an insect. So does a frog have 6 legs? No, so that's not an insect. Does a slug have 6 legs? No, so that's not an insect. So that's a big key to know if you have an insect or not. If you're lucky, you might even find a colored ground beetle gleaming in the sunlight. It's like discovering a precious jewel. But ground beetles aren't just pretty to look at, they're excellent hunters too. At night, they go out hunting for slugs and snails, which makes gardeners very happy. Perhaps the greatest insect hunter of all is the dragonfly. Even the name sounds fierce, but don't worry, they won't come chasing after you. Dragonflies are much more interesting in catching things like flies, mosquitoes, and gnats. Some will even snatch a spider from its web. On summer days when the air is still, you can still see their wings sparkling in the light as they hunt, twisting, diving, and plucking flies from the air. Dragonflies are fabulous flyers. They have 2 sets of powerful wings, which they can use to hover, change direction, and even fly backwards. It's hard to believe they started life in the water. But dragonflies lay their eggs in ponds or slow-moving rivers where they hatch out into small dragonfly nymphs. Nymphs shed its skins many times until it's fully grown. Finally, it climbs out of the water and rests on the stem of a plant. As dawn breaks, its skin splints open and a beautiful dragonfly emerges, unfolding its wings and drying itself in the sun. The special change that take place in insects' bodies is called metamorphosis. They happen in different ways as insects grow from eggs to adults. Sometimes when you think about these strange and wonderful things, moths hiding, ants talking, dragonflies changing, it's hard to believe that it could really be true. But you don't have to take my word for it. All you have to do is open the door and step outside. And this just shows about being an insect detective, which we will be this week. And just take a look because this is a nonfiction, not fake. So it's actually a realist, fiction. It gives us an index. Remember, that's a good clue to know if this is a true story. Because if I just read a story about, let's say a cat, it might not be a true story, but this is true because remember, if I want to look up the word and read about caterpillars, I'd go to page 15 and 28. If I want to read about their hunting, I'd go to page 21, 22. So remember, if you see that index in the back of a book, you know the book is telling you facts. Okay, now let's go back and infer. And I just want you to think, we usually would write this in our head, but let's go back and just think and not write it down today. Let's use those clues from the story to help understand what's happening. So my question for you to think of today is, why are gardeners so happy to see ground beetles in their garden? So why would you want a ground beetle in your garden?